Psychology helps us understand why being a good person can sometimes feel like a tragedy, even though goodness is a positive trait. From a psychological point of view, human behavior is shaped by emotions, thoughts, upbringing, and social environment. A person who is kind, caring, and helpful often develops these traits through early experiences, such as family values, cultural expectations, and personal beliefs about right and wrong. However, psychology also explains that when a person consistently puts others before themselves, it can create internal conflict, emotional stress, and unmet personal needs. This is where the idea of the tragedy of being a good person begins to make sense. A good person often operates with empathy, which means they deeply understand and feel the emotions of others. While empathy is a powerful strength, it can also become overwhelming. When someone constantly absorbs the feelings of others, especially sadness, stress, or anger, their own emotional boundaries may become weak. Psychology refers to this as emotional overload. Over time, this can lead to exhaustion, anxiety, and even burnout. The person may feel responsible for solving everyone's problems, even when those problems are not theirs to fix. Another important concept in psychology is the need for boundaries. Healthy boundaries help a person protect their mental and emotional well-being. However, good people often struggle to set boundaries because they fear hurting others or being seen as selfish. This creates a pattern where they say yes even when they want to say no. Psychologically, this behavior is linked to people-pleasing tendencies. People-pleasing is when a person seeks approval and acceptance by always accommodating others. While this may bring temporary satisfaction, it often leads to long-term dissatisfaction because the person's own needs are ignored. Cognitive psychology explains that our thoughts influence our emotions and behavior. A good person may have beliefs such as, "I must always help others," or "If I refuse, I am a bad person." These beliefs can become deeply rooted and automatic. As a result, the person feels guilt or anxiety when they try to prioritize themselves. This internal pressure can make it difficult to make balanced decisions. Instead of acting freely, they feel controlled by their own thoughts and moral expectations. Social psychology also plays a role in this tragedy. Society often praises kindness, but does not always protect kind people from being taken advantage of. In many social environments, individuals who are assertive or self-focused may achieve more visible success, while quiet and generous individuals may be overlooked. This creates a mismatch between effort and recognition. A good person may invest time, energy, and emotional support in relationships, but if others do not reciprocate, it can lead to feelings of imbalance and disappointment. From a psychological perspective, this imbalance affects self-esteem. Self-esteem is how a person values themselves. When a good person is repeatedly taken for granted, their self-worth may decline. They may begin to question whether their kindness has any value or whether they are being appreciated. Even though their intentions are positive, the lack of positive feedback from others can create self-doubt. This is particularly true when a person relies heavily on external validation rather than internal validation. Attachment theory in psychology also helps explain why some good people experience emotional struggles. People who develop secure attachment styles tend to have balanced relationships, but those with anxious attachment may seek constant reassurance from others. Such individuals may become overly giving in relationships because they fear abandonment or rejection. Their goodness becomes a way to maintain connection rather than a purely selfless act. This can lead to dependency, where their emotional well-being depends heavily on others' responses. Another psychological factor is empathy fatigue, which occurs when a person is repeatedly exposed to the emotional needs of others without enough time to recover. Good people who are always supporting others may neglect their own emotional needs. Over time, they may feel drained, unmotivated, or disconnected from their own feelings. This fatigue does not happen suddenly, but builds gradually as the person continues to give without receiving adequate emotional support in return. Psychology also highlights the concept of fairness perception. Humans naturally expect fairness in relationships, meaning that effort should be matched by appreciation or reciprocity. When a good person consistently gives more than they receive, their mind recognizes this imbalance. Even if they do not consciously complain, subconsciously they may feel dissatisfaction. This inner sense of unfairness contributes to emotional conflict, making them feel that their goodness is not being rewarded appropriately. Another tragic element explained by psychology is the difficulty of saying no. Saying no requires assertiveness, which is the ability to express one's own needs while respecting others. Good people often lack assertiveness because they are conditioned to prioritize harmony over conflict. As a result, they avoid confrontation and agree to requests even when they feel uncomfortable. This avoidance reduces short-term conflict but increases long-term stress. Their inability to say no becomes a psychological burden that accumulates over time. Decision fatigue is another relevant concept. When a good person is constantly making decisions based on others' needs rather than their own, they may feel mentally drained. Each decision requires emotional energy, and when this energy is spent on others, little remains for personal growth or self-care. This can lead to a sense of being stuck or overwhelmed. The person may feel that their life is controlled by external demands rather than internal desires. Psychology also explains the role of conditioning. If a person is repeatedly rewarded for being good, they may internalize the belief that their value depends on helping others. While this can encourage positive behavior, it can also create a rigid identity. They may struggle to express anger, frustration, or boundaries because these emotions conflict with their self-image as a good person. Suppressing natural emotions can lead to inner tension and psychological stress. In relationships, good people may experience imbalance because they often attract individuals who benefit from their kindness. From a psychological standpoint, this is not random. People tend to gravitate toward those who meet their emotional or practical needs. If a person is consistently giving, others may unconsciously rely on them. Over time, this creates relationships where one side gives and the other receives, leading to emotional exhaustion for the giver. Another important psychological insight is that good people may avoid self-assertion because they associate it with selfishness. However, psychology distinguishes between healthy self-care and selfish behavior. Healthy self-care is necessary for maintaining emotional balance, while selfishness involves disregarding others entirely. Good people often blur this distinction, which prevents them from taking care of themselves properly. This misunderstanding contributes to their internal struggle. Despite these challenges, psychology also acknowledges that being a good person has many benefits. Acts of kindness activate positive emotions and can increase feelings of happiness and purpose. Helping others can stimulate the release of chemicals in the brain that promote well-being. However, these benefits are most effective when balanced with self-care. Without balance, the same traits that bring joy can also lead to emotional strain. The tragedy from a psychological perspective is not that goodness is harmful, but that it can become unsustainable when not managed properly. A good person who lacks boundaries, self-awareness, and emotional support may experience inner conflict between their desire to help others and their need to protect themselves. This conflict creates stress that is often invisible to others, but deeply felt by the individual. In conclusion, psychology explains that the tragedy of being a good person lies in the imbalance between giving and receiving, empathy and self-protection, and external expectations and internal needs. Good people often struggle with boundaries, people-pleasing tendencies, emotional overload, and lack of recognition. These factors can lead to exhaustion, self-doubt, and dissatisfaction despite their positive intentions. At the same time, psychology suggests that this tragedy can be reduced by developing self-awareness, learning to set healthy boundaries, practicing assertiveness, and maintaining a balance between caring for others and caring for oneself. Being a good person is not the problem. The challenge lies in understanding one's own limits and needs while continuing to show kindness in a sustainable and healthy way.